We're all told to set goals and then we can be sure and make progress in our writing careers, right? Well, it's not quite that simple. The first problem is that your goal may be unrealistic. What I really mean is that it's outside of your control. As writers, a lot of times the goals we set sound like this. My next book is going to be a bestseller. So I'm going to work my tail off to write a really, really good book that I'm going to put a lot of effort behind the launch and voila, it's going to be a bestseller. Or maybe we set goals like, I'm going to place in the top 3 in a writing contest or something to that nature. The problem with these goals is they're not really goals, they're more like dreams. Whether or not your book becomes a bestseller, a lot of that is outside of your control. So you can increase the odds by writing a really good book, by making sure you have a really good cover, by getting really good editing, by having a really good marketing plan. All those things can help, but you can do all those things and then put the book on the market and you just never know how readers are going to respond. It also depends on a lot of other things like how big is your platform right now? Do you have a lot of people waiting for this book? Do you have a large readership? There's so many factors that go into it that whether or not your book becomes a bestseller can be partly or even largely outside of your control. Placing in a contest is the same way. Every contest has different judges, and those judges have their own subjective opinions. So you can't really control whether someone's going to believe that your writing is deserving of first, second, or third place. You can increase your odds, again, by making the story as good as you can, getting some good editing. These things can all help you, but in the end, whether or not you win a contest is out of your control. So when you set a goal, in order for it to work well for you, it's super important that the goal is in your control. Better goals would be, for my next book, I'm going to make sure that the cover fits the genre a lot better than my last cover did. Or maybe I'm going to make sure that I get at least 30 reviews on Amazon for this book within the first 3 months of launch. If you haven't published a book yet, I'm going to create the best book launch plan I can, and I'm going to educate myself on what that is. I'm going to go to workshops, I'm going to read blogs, I'm going to watch videos, and I'm going to figure out everything I need to do to make this the best launch plan possible. All those are good goals to have because all of those are in your control. So if your goal isn't working, that's the first question to ask yourself. Was this goal realistic, meaning was it totally and completely within my control to accomplish? The second reason why your goal may not be working for you is that you failed to break it down into all of its steps. We said initially we wanted it to be a bestseller. That's unrealistic. So let's say we changed it to, I'm going to launch this book in the best way that I can. Great goal to have. But then if you don't break that down into what steps do you really need to take to make that happen, you probably aren't going to succeed. That goal isn't going to work for you. A goal sitting there by itself isn't enough. We have to know what steps to take to reach that goal. So that's where something like marketing plan outline comes into play, or maybe a marketing plan list, and you start putting down all the things you want to do. You want to make sure and get 30 reviews. You're going to use XYZ services to get more people to review your book. Maybe you're going to try NetGalley and Booksprout and Book Sirens. You're going to get more reviews for your book, and you're going to have a launch party when it first goes out. You're going to do that in person in an event in your local town, or you're going to do that on YouTube Live, or however you're going to do it. You're going to guest post at this blog and this blog and this blog and this blog. You're going to pitch at least 15 podcasts to see if you can get on there and talk about your new book. You see what I'm saying? You're breaking this down. How are you going to launch this? Another really important thing is to say, by what date am I going to have submitted to these 15 podcasts? And then you back up from there. By what date am I going to choose which 15 podcasts I'm going to submit to? By what date am I going to make sure that my book is ready to go out to reviewers? And which book service, if you're going to use those, am I going to do at what time? You got to break this all down into its very small parts. It's really easy to do. You take your big goal. How am I going to do this? Well, this step, this step, this step. Then you break down each of those steps. For this step, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you put dates by each of those. That's the way to make your goal work. The third reason why your goal isn't working for you is that you haven't educated yourself on how to make it happen. So let's stick with this example of creating a marketing plan. Let's say you are a new writer and this is your first book that you've had published. Or maybe you've published 1 or 2 books, but you haven't been happy with how the launch plan has gone. It becomes clear that you got to learn more about this. So you need to put down there, how am I going to learn more about this? What books am I going to buy? You need to go research those books. What books can help you create a better launch plan? What works workshops am I going to take? What coaches or mentors am I going to work with to make sure that this works well for me? Outline all of these things so that you are gradually learning more about what it takes to create a good book launch plan, and then you're able to know what steps you need to implement along the way. One of the biggest reasons that our writing goals are not working is that we haven't given enough time yet. A lot of us, expect that if we do this, and this, we've broken the goal down, we've educated ourselves, we know everything we're supposed to do, we've done all the steps, and we've launched that book, and we didn't reach our dream of becoming a bestseller. Sometimes you are expecting too much of yourself. I've done this. I've thought that my first time out or my second time out, I should be more experienced at this, I should be doing better at this. Not necessarily. Any profession, whether it be writing, being a pilot, being a fireman, it always takes more time, more education, more practice, more experience to get good at any of these professions. A lot of times it's really interesting, we think, oh, well, I could do that. And then you go try to do that and you realize, oh, there's a lot more to this than I thought there was. Any sort of profession, especially writing and publishing and trying to get somewhere in this industry, takes more time than we think. It takes more experience than we think. So don't expect your first time out, your second time out, your third time out is going to reach the level that you hope it will. A better way to gauge it is to say, did I do better this time than I did last time? Was this book launch better than the last one was? That is a better way to say, did I actually reach my goal? Did I actually do well or not? Than to feel like you're a failure because you didn't reach that pinnacle dream this time out. And the last reason your goal may not be working for you is that it's the wrong goal for you. So maybe you heard that you should do a regular blog to get people to come to your website and sign up for your newsletter. So you try doing a regular blog, but you find after about 6 months that this isn't fun for me. You're having to force yourself to sit down and write the blog. You are not finding a niche that works for you. You're just not thriving with this sort of activity. But yet you're thinking in the corner of your mind, I'd really like to create more Instagram reels, or I'd like to do more fancy graphics around my book, or whatever your inclination might be. It's okay to pivot at that point. It's not okay to pivot if your blog isn't doing well, but you still really like doing it. We need to give these things time to catch on. So if blogging is working for you, absolutely keep going for it. Just learn how to do it better. But if it's not working for you, then maybe this goal wasn't right and you need to go back and revisit it. It is worthwhile, if a goal isn't working, to ask yourself, am I lining up with this goal still? I mean, maybe I thought it was a good idea 6 months ago, but am I still lining up with it creatively, emotionally? Am I enjoying it? Do I still want to learn more about it? Then it's still the right goal for you. But if the answer to those questions is no, you may need to revisit it and set a different goal that is more in line with where you want to be. Have you ever set a writing goal that you thought initially was just what you needed to do, but you found out like 6 months or a year later that this isn't really lined up with me? If that's happened to you, please add your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And by the way, if one of your goals is to finish the book you're working on right now, make sure you check out the video coming up to find out the mistakes you want to avoid if you want to finish that book. See you next time.